Like you all, I am a product of UT. I'm actually a product of Austin as well. I started going here in 1990, and I was introduced to something that is very consistent with what starts here changes the world. I was introduced to this little thing called the internet. And I came in with a programming background. I'd been programming since I was 7 years old, thanks to my amazing mother, who found that I had a calling for that at an early age and let me actually do that and got everything out of my way so that I could do that. I grew up programming 40 hours a week from age 7 to 21, which sounds very strange now, I realize, and was indeed a very strange way to grow up in Texas, where football is a religion. Got me beaten up a lot, but we won't go there. But I was exposed to this thing called the internet in 1990, and I thought it was just amazingly fascinating. And there's very few schools that you could have gone to at that point in time that would have exposed you in that way. UT had just massive fiber optic bandwidth back then, and even much more so now. And I had this background of creating bulletin board systems, online games, and I thought, wow, now all of this is free. We don't even have long distance charges. I can talk to people in Singapore and Russia and Germany, and I can hopefully get all of them to collaborate to build essentially a game that's similar to the ones I've created in my childhood here at UT. So I started a game called Renegade Outpost in 1990. By 92, supposedly it became the most popular game online. I actually, true story, got kicked out of the computer science lab for hogging their resources. The games got so popular that back then the computers running it were Sun Spark stations, and they had 16 megabytes of memory, and I promise this is the only technical detail I'm going to give you, or you're going to fall asleep. And it would take up about 12 megabytes of memory, and so it would cause the hard drive to just virtually swap the memory all the time, and it would crash the hard drives. And these Sun Sparks were pretty expensive, and so I actually think I cost UT far more than I paid them in education just by replacing Sun Sparks. So they actually kicked my game off campus, but that was okay because it's the internet and it had the same address, so no big deal. But it did start here, and I'm not sure I would have gotten into the internet had it not been for UT. Again, there's very few schools that would have afforded me that opportunity. My grandfather taught here for 35 years. He did his whole career at University of Texas. I actually just got email yesterday from someone completely randomly. I'm not sure if this person is in the room, but they said, I studied under your grandfather. He was my advisor for my PhD. He was a mathematics professor, and he changed my life. And I just want to get together with you and talk about how he did, which is really fascinating, something I'm definitely going to do because he has passed away. My father and mother also went here. And that spark of getting involved in the internet led to me starting 5 businesses over time. The 2 largest businesses I started, Core Metrics and Bizarre Voice, which I started with a co-founder named Brant Barden, who's an Alabama grad, no relation to UT, and is very much a zealot in terms of football, trust me. Those businesses, Core Metrics and Bizarre Voice, did change the world. They changed the world of commerce. All of you have actually used those businesses in this room. You just don't realize it. How many of you, when you shop online, read customer reviews when you're considering buying something? Okay, so almost everybody in the room. Almost every time when you're doing that, you're interacting with Bizarre Voice. It's It literally means the voice of the marketplace. Coremetrics is a business which basically analyzes what's happening inside of online retail sites, and the biggest beneficiary of all of Coremetrics was Google. The reason why is that we actually started Coremetrics prior to Google, and Coremetrics gave you perfect information about how your marketing spend was working online, about how all of your web design efforts, any merchandising you were doing online was performing. And back when I started the company and I would talk with the press about Coremetrics, I would say, well, let me try to describe what the company does, because it was very early days of the internet in 1999. And I said, have you ever heard of this gentleman named John Wanamaker? John Wanamaker is the original Philadelphia merchant. And he had this quote saying, half my advertising is wasted. I just don't know which half. I said, for the first time in human history, we're going to be able to tell you exactly which half. And when you know exactly which half, you'll spend in a near infinite way. Because why would you stop spending marketing dollars if you know it's working? There should be no ceiling. Google came along. Coremetrics had hundreds and hundreds of the largest retailers around the world as clients. And they launched. They created the best real-time yellow pages the world has ever seen. It worked phenomenally well. I remember clients like Neiman Marcus saying, we won't even spend on Google unless we're getting 800% of our money back. Those days are long gone. You get very little back today, but you still make money. And, of course, their revenues grew at a near infinite pace. And I want you to know that now at UT, and I'm here often, I'm here every week meeting with students, there's more flint to change the world than ever. There's more ways to create those sparks. There's a constant flow of venture competitions here at the university. It's not hard to find them. And they have funding prizes associated with it to help the student actually get the business going. There's HackTX, which is the largest hackathon in all of Texas. It's here at UT. There were about 800 participants last time. The winning participant, in a 24-hour period with no sleep, 3 people created a fully functioning game called Whistle Hero, which is like Guitar Hero, except you whistle into your phone. It was amazing. Our 9-year-old daughter was one of the judges. It was definitely her favorite. We have Longhorn Startup. This is a class that Bob Metcalf teaches. If you don't know who Bob Metcalf is, he invented Ethernet. It's a huge coup to have him here at the university. Bob Metcalf teaches that class alongside Ben Dyer. Ben is the founder of Peachtree Software, one of the most successful software companies in history. Still has that brand name. Some of you may actually use Peachtree. And that class is also taught alongside Josh Baer. Josh Baer is a serial entrepreneur, and he also founded Capital Factory here in town, which is the most successful incubator here in Austin. And recently at Longhorn Startup, which is open to any student across any school, even though it's housed in the engineering school, any student can apply, and there are communication students in there, there's business students in there, there's computer science students in there. Recently had a demo day. Mark Cuban attended and spoke. There were around 800 or 900 people that attended demo day. The quality of the presentations was amazing. And you really saw, that saying, what starts here changes the world. You could really see it. Mark Cuban ended up staying afterwards for another 3 hours to spend time with the companies that were here, getting really in-depth demos and asking them lots of questions. There are entrepreneurs in residence at many schools. I'm one at the business school, but I meet with students from all schools. and all entrepreneurs in residence do the same. Bob Metcalf essentially is one. Gary Hoover, who's the founder of Hoover's here in town, as well as multiple other businesses back in the past. If you're an Austinite, you'll remember Bookstop. That was the original book superstore. Gary Hoover founded that. He's an entrepreneur in residence at the Information School. We're constantly meeting with students, and none of that existed when I was here, and I'm sure probably didn't exist when you were here. Again, I was here 90 to 94, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't even an entrepreneurship class, not one that I knew of. There's more entrepreneurial classes now than ever before. Almost every college has one, and students are really into it. This is definitely the mode of history. This is the trend of history. It's happening at many great institutions. It's also happening very much here at UT, and it's one of the most popular, actually, career paths, if not to found your own business, to go work for a startup yourself. We have a constant flow of entrepreneurs speaking at the university. Just in the past semester, I hosted Cotter Cunningham, the founder and CEO of Retail Me Not. He has a very interesting story. It's not the college dropout story. He didn't become an entrepreneur until he was 46 years old, and he failed miserably on his first business, and then quickly pivoted after 2 years of that, and now has created one of the most successful companies in Austin's history, certainly in modern times. Dell, of course, is the most successful Austin company. We hosted John Arrow, the founder of Mutual Mobile, Chris Basidi from Austin Ventures, and Josh Baer, wearing his hat as both a serial entrepreneur and Capital Factory. That's just me in terms of hosting those. There are literally hundreds of these going on all the time across all the schools, and there's an organization called Longhorn Entrepreneurship Agency, which is a student-run organization, which actually pulls all of this together, and you literally could go to a different entrepreneurial event every week. You could just completely binge on that if you wanted. So the main topic today was the economy. And it's certainly a worthy topic. You can analyze it, you can observe it, you can react to it, you can also be paralyzed by it, and you can be overwhelmed. But ultimately, you can also choose to change the economy. You can choose to support entrepreneurs, to celebrate entrepreneurs, or be an entrepreneur yourself. And almost everybody in here works for someone that was brave enough to start your company in the first place. The people excluded from that would be the people in here that have started their own businesses, of course. And you're enjoying the fruits of their labor, of their daringness. If Michael Dell hadn't, while he was at UT, decided to start or continue on with Dell, much to the pressure of his parents saying, hey, we want you to finish school, which every parent, of course, would say. But when your child takes off the summer and focuses on a company and makes over $300,000 of revenue, you probably should let him drop out. And if he hadn't made that decision, if we could go back in time and all of us with peer pressure try to convince him, no, finish school, go all the way through, I literally think that about a third of all businesses here in Austin, Texas would disappear if we could make him decide not to do Dell. That's the type of impact that entrepreneurship can have. And I don't think a lot of people think about that. I don't think a lot of people that walk into Nike today and look at the amazing offices they have, and the gym and the childcare and everything else that employees benefit from, think about Phil Knight at a track meet begging people to buy shoes out of his car, working with a waffle iron in the kitchen, trying to crudely engineer the next generation of running shoes. I don't think people think about that. And those are the people that are changing the world. And everybody has that in us. We're all Americans, I think, in this room. And as Americans, it's very deep in our DNA that we're meant to be entrepreneurs. Our founding fathers came to this country, and they literally had no equipment to take on the empire. They pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, except they couldn't afford boots. But they did it, and they created a country that is literally about a fifth of the world's entire GDP in just 280 years. And I think that's an amazing parallel with a country that I was recently moved by, and my wife was recently moved by, Israel. What struck me when we visited Israel, with it being the most entrepreneurial country per capita, is that here's this tiny little country with really no natural resources at all, which is thriving. And I think the reason it's thriving is because the mission is too important. But it shares so much commonality with us. Here's a country which gets set up as an outcome of the Holocaust, which immediately falls into the war for independence and has to beg and borrow to get equipment to fight. And those people there, they remember, because it wasn't that long ago. Maybe in America, some of us have forgotten because it was longer. It's the best time to start a business right now. In the history of America, this is the best time. Capital has never been cheaper. There's the highest availability of capital. Venture capitalists are overflowing with money. Private equity firms are overflowing with money. There are many people that are also overflowing with money that don't know where to put that money and are worried about volatility of the stock market and some of the things that we've seen today. And we also have the best valuations that we've seen since 1999. I'm sure some of you have heard of a little company called WhatsApp this week. You probably didn't use it. And it was bought for 19 billion. I read a stat yesterday that WhatsApp sends and receives more messages than almost all of the global telecoms combined. It's a pretty amazing thing to contemplate for a business so young. For those of you that are in Austin, there's resources like never before to start a business. Of course, South by Southwest is coming up in just a couple of weeks and is getting more and more overwhelming, but there's also tremendous opportunity there. You have Capital Factory, which is a thriving incubator, I think our leading incubator. You have Techstars, you have Tech Ranch. If you're into CPG, you have Incubation Station. And of course, you have UT's own Austin Technology Incubator, which is the longest running incubator in town, with terrific performance overall. And as you look around, as you walk around the campus as alumni, it doesn't take much to see what impact entrepreneurship has had on the campus. Have you been to the new Gates-Dell complex? Entrepreneurs. Who's the business school named after? An entrepreneur. Who's funding me being here today? Dr. Butler, Herb Keller, an entrepreneur. So you have it all around you. And it is true that entrepreneurs change the world. And great entrepreneurs also give back so that they can help others do the same. I'm happy to tell you that the energy is higher here than ever before. As you plug in, you walk around, I meet with students every week. It is stunning, the number of businesses that are being created here. So I have a call to action for you as we slip into the cocktail hour. There's never been a better time to give back than today at UT. You should visit the campus and see it for yourself. And by visit, I don't mean just come to the AT&T Executive Center, but actually go see some of the entrepreneurs here. Go to things like Longhorn Startup Demo Day. That was open to the public. Go actually see the amazing level of innovation that's occurring here at UT. Attend the startup competitions. Come back for some of the talks. Give a talk yourself. Last night, we had 12 mentors sitting with students at the dinner event. The students signed up in advance. One conversation with those students could literally change the trajectory of their career. You guys had conversations like that when you were here. And you remember those, and they're happening all the time. And you could sign up to be at that dinner and be a mentor yourself. So be a part of the force for change. Start that change here at UT, and we will indeed change the world together. What starts here will change the world with your help. Thank you. And I'm happy to report I'm even a little bit early for cocktail hour. Would you like to do questions? I'll repeat the question. Yes. So the question is, what's the best student business idea I've seen in my role? That is a very hard question to answer because it's only obvious in hindsight. There is a student-run business right now which is doing something that isn't that sexy, but they're executing so well, called Burpee, B-U-R-P-Y, which is an online grocery delivery service, and it's phenomenal how fast they've ramped up revenues while they've stayed in school. That's one example. Is that sexy? No. Does it need to be that sexy? No. I think it has huge potential. Obviously, that's a huge, huge market. There's lots of competition in that market, but there's not a lot of competition for that market in the South, which is where they're focused. But it's stunning. I mean, I see so many different businesses that, honestly, it's a bit overwhelming for me, too. I'm happy to say that people here are thinking really, really big. There is a student recently that dropped out that I actually wouldn't have recommended he drop out, but he did. By the way, my answer to that question, because I get asked this question a lot, and I went through both undergrad and then I got my MBA, and then I started a business. Okay, so I did it maybe younger than Cotter Cunningham, but I certainly am no Michael Dell or Mark Zuckerberg or a business maven, entrepreneurial maven of that caliber. And so anytime a student asks me, like, hey, you know, I'm really passionate about this business I'm working on, do you think I should drop out? I always say, well, did you make $300,000 in revenue over the summer? And they look at me kind of puzzled, and I say, that's what Michael Dell did. If you're making serious revenue, or you've got a really clear path, by all means you should. But unless you have that, you shouldn't. But the student that did drop out, and maybe he'll be a billionaire and up here talking, and we'll all say he made the right decision, is a student who essentially has created the Airbnb, if you know what Airbnb is, of apartment rentals. Not quite sure it's legal, but it's a very big market. And we'll see. But I'll tell you, it's so inspiring to be here. I mean, I'm constantly context switching, and every student that comes through that's really seriously working on a business is generally thinking really big and really is intent on changing the world for the better. Sure. So the question is, what's going on in crowdfunding? I'm really excited about crowdfunding because of this reason. You know, I said earlier that we should support and celebrate entrepreneurs more. Entrepreneurship takes a lot of experimentation. Part of the reason that Silicon Valley produces companies like Facebook is that there are so many experiments to get to that point. And anytime I meet a student who's really, really serious about entrepreneurship, I always encourage them to get started while they're in school. As I say, you have no encumbrances, you know, you don't have children, you don't have a mortgage, you have lots of time if you choose to spend it that way. And you know, you have all these resources. I mean, you could go meet with any entrepreneur in residence. You could go to any of these talks. You also have the resources of the university. We have startup labs for them to work out of. We have all types of things. And the more we start to shrug off failure, and I'm not saying you should start a business and be some risk-seeking maniac, but the more that we can just shrug it off and say, okay, that experiment didn't work, and just keep walking, the bigger businesses we're going to create. And what crowdfunding does is it allows a lot more experimentation. It basically decouples from the VC model where, you know, I was at Austin Ventures for 9 months, so I got to really see the process behind the scenes, and I was very thankful to Austin Ventures for that opportunity, because it was the first time as an entrepreneur that I was able to see, you know, exactly what goes on in those meetings and be a part of those decisions. And the brutal reality is that these VC firms can only choose to get involved in a few projects. There's just not enough time. If you're a general partner at one of these firms and you're on 14 boards, and especially startup boards where you need to meet at least once every month, month and a half, because things are moving pretty quick and you're trying to get the business model really set, that's a lot of time. I mean, you're basically just spending almost all your time in board meetings. And so what crowdfunding does is it allows a lot more experimentation. And out of that experimentation are going to pop, and already have popped, some really big businesses. Crowdfunding is analogous to incubators without the mentorship. At least at an incubator, you get mentors. And at a great VC firm like Austin Ventures, you get really, really good mentors. I mean, there's really good people at Austin Ventures. I also am a product of Chris Pacity's mentorship. Chris was a very good, and we're still on the board together, Bizarre Voice, a very good mentor along the way as we built that business. So there's kind of an escalating tier of mentors that you get access to. Crowdfunding, unfortunately, you get access to no mentors, but at least you get access to the money where you can try the experiment. If the experiment works, then you're going to get to climb to the next rung, which is incubator, or if the experiment really works, VC. So I love crowdfunding. I think we need a lot more of it. And we will have more of it. There's no doubt about it. Okay, I think that we're at our time, and thank you again so much for spending the day here. Please spend more time on campus.